Happy New Year once again. And this demonstration is going to walk you through how to view your academic requirements at Miami-Dade College. And this is formally known as your degree audit, right? Oftentimes it's still referred to as a degree audit, but it's rightfully known in our new platform, MD Connect, as academic requirements. So how do you get there? So you'll go to our main page, www.mdc.edu, and this is what it looks like. You will click on Portals, and you will click on MD Connect under Students. So there are two MD Connects, one for employees and the other for students. Once you click on MD Connect for students, it will prompt you to log in. So you'll put in your username and your password, and you will sign in, and that should take you to the platform. So let's go here to self-service. All right, so once you log in, this is what you will see. And to get to your academic requirements, you will click on this option here and then the arrow. So other features that are here in the Student Center that are worth mentioning. You can view your grades, you can request your official transcript, you can view your unofficial transcript. So those are like 4 common options that you can take advantage of on this menu. So academic requirements, grades, view your unofficial transcript, and request your unofficial transcript. But we're going to focus on academic requirements. So once you click on that, it's going to take you to your academic requirements. So it'll have your name. So for the purposes of the demonstration, it's Miguel MDC Murphy with my ID number 00, right? And you can actually view the PDF version of this, and it comes out much more nicely. The PDF document is a secured one. So today, my major is business administration, right? So it's an associative arts pathway to a major in business administration. So here I'll need 60 units, right? So this is worth mentioning that units are equivalent to what we know as credits. And so typically for your Associate of Arts degree, you need 60. So I've taken, and I'm currently registered for 31. This is my first year, and I just completed the fall term, and I've enrolled for the spring term. So once I successfully complete my spring courses, I'll have 29 units left. So I'm just about halfway, right? And that's the goal for your first year. It's to complete half of your requirements in the first year, as long as you go full-time, and the other half in the second year. So my grade point average, what is required is at least a 2.0 GPA. That's what's required. I actually have a 4.0 as of right now. So let's scroll down. So the Associate of Arts degree, to complete it, it's 60 units, and it has different sections, and I'm going to run through the sections real quick. So you have communications, you have the mathematics section, you have oral communications, you have humanities, right? You have the behavioral and social sciences, and I'll explain that section shortly. You have the natural science section, which includes life science and physical science. You have your general education elective. You have the computer competency section, you have the civic literacy competency section, you have the foreign language competency section, you have the first year experience section, you have Gordon rule, you have the residency requirement for the Associate of Arts. So for example, you need to complete at least 25% of your credits at Miami-Dade College to earn a degree. All right, you have a GPA requirement, minimum 2.0, etc. So I'm gonna run through the requirements. So I'll start from the top. And what I should have done was, when I save this, was click on expand all. But this works fine too, because expand all gives you essentially a snapshot of all of the courses that you've taken. So the communication section requires that students pass, right, ENC 1101 and 1102 to satisfy this requirement. So this student, and I'm using me as this student, has satisfied this section, and you need a grade of C or higher. The next section is the mathematics section. So students must pass one course from each group to satisfy this requirement. All right, so 6 units are required. So far, 3 have been taken and 3 more are needed. So the college algebra, and this is a business student, right? Business administration. So far, college algebra has been taken. And I should have loaded up the map in this demonstration. So perhaps I should do that. I'll do that in a subsequent demonstration, but let's go back. So the math section, you need 6 units, and college algebra fulfills the first 3. So the other 3, and once you click on the list here, view course list as a student, essentially it will give you your options, but it's not quite that simple, right? It's not just picking and choosing any math course to fulfill the requirements. So typically it depends on your pathway or your major. So if you're doing business administration, essentially you're going to need business calculus, you're going to need statistics, right? So one of those 2 courses, whether it's business calculus or statistics, will fulfill the next 3 units of your math requirement. And that's where your academic plan comes in. So it's important to understand what is expected of you. It's like a cheat sheet. And it's also important to know where you plan on transferring to, because your math course is chosen based on what is required of you at the next level, right? At the bachelor's level, at the institution that you wish to transfer to. So the next section, you have oral communications, and you need 3 units. So speech is a very common course, but it's not the only course. I'll give you another example. There's public speaking, and there's also ENC 2300, that's advanced writing. And depending on your pathway, right, that can determine what your options are. So here in the Student Center, you can actually click on View All to look at your options for that particular section. But speech is a widely recommended course. So let's go down. So the humanities section now, you need 6 units for that. And what I should have done was expanded all of the options. So The humanities section requires 6 units. So there's one group and there's another group. So the first group is the Florida core, and then you have the MDC core. So essentially you would pick from both groups, right? So typically, if you take humanities 1020, that's a common course, we want to ensure that you take like an upper division one, right? So let's say we take the humanities from this group. In this group, we want to ensure that we have at least like philosophy or critical thinking. And you can view all of your options, and that's where your academic plan comes in. But for the purpose of this demonstration, Philosophy 2010, Intro to Philosophy, and Humanities will fulfill that section. So on to the next section, you have your behavioral social science. So this one is a little bit tricky because it has 2 options, option A, right, and option B. And essentially, if you select a course from option A in the Florida core, you also have to select an MDC core here in option A. So if you choose psychology, it is important that you select from one of these options here, all right? Because if you go down into option B and you select a course that is not compatible, it's not going to work out. And so what I mean is that when you get to the social sciences, the behavioral and social science section, it's important that if you choose a course in the first group from option A, you must choose a course in the second group from option A, right? If you choose one in option B, you must choose in the second group from option B. So this is a widely and common mistake that is often made when choosing the correct or appropriate courses to fulfill the behavioral social sciences section. So the natural science section is very similar. Essentially, if you choose a course in the first group in option A, you have to select a course in the second group from option A, right? So you essentially need to pick the appropriate course from this group and then pick an appropriate course from that group in option A. If you choose a life science from option B, it has to be a physical science from option B. That's a very, very, very common mistake that is made. And then you end up with, for example, a course in option A, and then that's life science, and then another life science in option B. So you want to ensure that that mistake is not made. So you have your general education elective, that's 3 units. And you know that one's, you know, any 3 credits that doesn't, the first 3 credits that's not used for any other gen ed requirement essentially will place here. So this one in this case is satisfied, right? And that sort of makes up the 36 gen ed requirements. And then you have your elective section, which involves 24 units or credits as we normally refer to it. Now, for all the general education requirements, you need a C or higher. Electives, a D or higher will suffice but the D actually lowers the grade point average. So oftentimes, if one has a D, it's recommended that it is retaken for GPA purposes, right? Because essentially you need a 2.0 to graduate, and a D typically is a 1.0. So if you have too many Ds, then it won't put you above that 2.0 mark that is required for graduation, and also to maintain your financial aid. So electives, all right? So electives are typically tied to one's program of study. So if you're doing business, typical electives that will count would be courses like microeconomics, for example, accountant, financial accountant with a lab, or managerial accountant with a lab. And, courses like principles of business or principles of management, those courses typically will count as electives. And you need 24 units. So on average, that's about 8 courses, for example. It doesn't have to be specifically 8 classes, because you may have labs, and labs don't total to 3 units or credits as actual lectures. So if we do 24 divided by 3, that will be about 8 courses on average that you will take in your major, right? Or your pathway to your major, for example. So for example, and then you have other courses that are not directly tied to your major, but are required, right? And that would look like, CGS 1060. It says 1 here because the first 3 credits would have gone to the general education elective section. So we have principles of business, we have intermediate algebra, that counts as an elective, not a college credit math. And then you have your first year experience or student success course, and that counts as an elective. So now you have other requirements like the computer competency. Essentially, if you don't take the class, it doesn't mean that you can't fulfill the requirements, because you could take a placement test, so to speak, right? A computer skills proficiency test, as we call it, to fulfill that section. The civic literacy competency section, this is satisfied for the student, but that essentially was implemented this academic year, the 2018-2019 academic year. So all students who have started this year must demonstrate proficiency. And the courses that one needs to take would be American history, or American federal government, or equivalent AP, right, or CLEP exam. Some students essentially would test out of this from high school. So if you took advanced placement, American history, or American federal government, you would fulfill the civic literacy competency. And there's the CLEP exam. So AP, typically you take that in high school. The CLEP, you could take it before you arrive to college or while you're in college, if you feel you have those skills. So that's the civic literacy. Then we have the foreign language competency. And that could be, for this student, it was satisfied, great. And more than likely, student would have taken or met the requirements in high school. So in high school, you can meet the requirements by taking Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, French 1, French 2, Chinese 1, Chinese 2, Italian 1, Italian 2, American Sign Language 1, and American Sign Language 2. So there's ways to fulfill the foreign language requirement. Now, if your native language is not English and it is perhaps French, for example, there's ways of testing out. You can also take the CLEP, Again, so if your native language is, or you're proficient in French or Spanish, we have a lot of bilingual students, particularly in South Florida, you can take the CLEP exam and test out of, having to take a foreign language requirement. So sometimes the foreign language requirement will come in addition to, actually having to take your required courses. But it's good to have that conversation because some students only take 1 year in high school and have to take the second year. So that can be integrated into your academic plan. So let's see, first year experience. So if you're pursuing an Associate of Arts degree, you essentially are required to complete a first year experience course. So that's Student Life Skills, SLS, or equivalent during your first term. And so what does that mean? Do you have to take an SLS? Yes, it's recommended. Do we find that it's delayed? In very few cases, some students delay it. But the information that you gain in an SLS course is very crucial to the decisions that you make in your first semester in terms of getting the support that you need to succeed. Also, the resources that are on a college campus, it's important that you get that support, and it's a built-in support in the first term. So every semester that goes by and an SLS course or first year experience course is not taken, it makes things a little more difficult than they need to be. So you have your Gordon Rule. Senator Jack Gordon passed away. May his soul rest in peace. Just a little bit of history on the Gordon Rule. Senator Jack Gordon felt it was necessary for anyone who earned a college degree, essentially to be proficient in English and math, basically writing and computation, right? So students at MDC must pass both ENC 1101 and 1102 and earn 6 units in Gordon Rule write-in, GW Gordon Rule write-in courses other than ENC 1101 and ENC 1102, and earn 6 units in the Gordon Rule calculation courses, right? Computation, like math. So that's where the 6 college units or credits of math come in, and it fulfills the Gordon Rule. So I mentioned that the residency requirement, you need to earn essentially at least 15 units. That's 25% of units or credits, right, toward the degree at Miami-Dade College, as opposed to transfer from another institution or earn through an exam such as AP or CLEP. And you must have a minimum grade point average of 2.0. All right. And if there are any credits that are not used, it goes in this section that typically applies to a course that does not work out. So life is not perfect. There are hiccups at times. And so it's important that if that happens, of course, you rectify it, right? But this section displays surplus units and in some cases courses that are in progress and have not received the grade yet. It may also display courses with failing grades, preparatory courses like developmental courses, EAP or ESL courses, or other courses that do not satisfy graduation requirements for this particular certificate or degree. All right, and a couple notes. So students should check their individual advisement report to determine specific graduation policies in effect for their program of study for the year and term they entered Miami-Dade College. Unless otherwise specified, general education courses must be specified. General education courses must be passed with a grade of C or higher, right? So that's where your English 1101 and 1102 and speech and those humanities courses and the behavioral and social sciences courses, you need a C or higher, your natural sciences courses, right? So essentially, just some other notes, a high school diploma or GED is required to enroll in the Associate of Arts degree program. The GPA listed at the top of this report, earlier it showed you it's a 4.0, right, is the plan GPA, which includes only grades used to satisfy the graduation requirements of this particular program. It is not the same as the cumulative GPA, which accounts for every grade a student has earned, and both of these GPAs are used to determine graduation eligibility. And you can find your cumulative GPA on your unofficial transcript. So, right, so this report is subject to revision and includes only graduation requirements in accord with the student's requirement term. So this is like a snapshot of your academic requirements, or academic report used to be known as your degree audit. All right. So maybe what I can do is continue to use different examples and, do one with an Associate of Science or college credit certificate so that this becomes more familiar to students who are pursuing a degree, whether it's the Associate of Arts or Associate of Science. So again, this is Miguel Murphy, just doing some demonstrations on some of the tools that students should become familiar with, or should already be familiar with, but perhaps need like a refresher. So hopefully this was helpful. And if you found it helpful, you feel free to share it and like it. And I'll also make this available on my YouTube channel. So if you need to subscribe, you can simply go to YouTube, put Miguel Murphy, you'll see my picture here, and subscribe and click the notification bell so you'll get an alert when a new video emerges. Please continue to have a wonderful new year. Take care.